Okay, so basically, I'm just going to walk you through what we talked about earlier on, but this time it's going to be a bit detailed. So I'm going to begin from the network infrastructure because that is what copper, is built on top of. So when you understand the network, how devices will communicate, how um, devices normally communicate, then copper will be a walkover, and you really understand what the technical aspects of it is all about. So essentially, you are dealing with an intranet as depicted in the diagram here. You have a common configuration, which is client-server architecture. So all the PCs this side and the phones are clients, and here this server is a dedicated machine which will host all the software which will power this intranet and the communication. So the client server architecture basically means you walk into a restaurant, you have the waiter come over, they show you the menu, you pick an item, then you get served. So you are the client, then the waiter will serve you based on the request which you make, based on the order which you make. So if you order, let's say, whatever you order, so you order that, then that order will get processed in the kitchen, and the waiter will bring the food to your table. So it's a similar arrangement also in the network world, where these clients will place an order, they'll send a request, then the server will process that request, and it will send back the food or the response. But all of this is facilitated by the network. So this access point here is a means by which a network is formed, to which all these computers will connect. There's a physical connection between the access point and the server. So these computers here will connect to the access point, and by virtue of that connection, a network will be formed. This will allow packets to move from one device to the other, and from one computer to the server and back. So it will allow that back and forth communication between the client and the server. Now, the standard way, the default way in which these devices will communicate is based on the configuration. Normally on Windows, you establish a network, okay? Then you normally get to see other devices which are connected to that network under the network section here in your file explorer. And then from there, you click on the computer, depending on the devices, or rather, uh, depending on the files which have been shared, you can access those specific regions. Otherwise, you do not normally get to access them. So basically, that's how the normal setup would work. So Copper simply builds on top of this. Okay, it tries to introduce the concepts found in the internet and bringing them down to the local scale. So on the internet, you normally get to interact with servers around the world, and then you send a request through your browser. Then the browser will send that specific order to a server. The server will process the order and send back a response which will be shown in the browser. So that's how the internet works on a large scale. But bring it down to the small scale, we want something similar, but then this server will, instead of simply facilitating file transfer and printer access, it will now be able to mimic the behavior of a server, which can be found on the internet, but now on a local setup. So by mimicking that behavior, we are able to bring down the behavior of the internet to a local scale, uh, within the network infrastructure. So what that means is computer A, PC 1, 2, 3, and 4 can be able to send requests through the browser to the server. The server will process the requests, and they will be sent back to PC1 or any other PC, and the browser will render the results. So essentially, that's what it's all about. It's all about sending and receiving requests. So Copper is a way in which we are facilitating uh, this local internet communication. So for each of these computers to access the websites which will be stored on this server, they'll need to have copper installed on them. So we're going to install copper on each of these machines. Then once copper is installed on these machines, then they can be able to access the sites which are stored on this server. Minus copper, they cannot access those resources. And even if they had copper, take them out of this network, or rather let them not have an IP address and take them out of this intranet, they still will not be able to access these resources here, because an intranet has got this principle which states that you must restrict access to a specific geographic location, and even those people who are in that geographic location must be authenticated. So by introducing copper, we are able to authenticate users, but not only do that, we're able to limit access. So what this basically means is that a PC may be on the network, it may even have an IP address, but if it doesn't have copper, it won't be able to access any of those resources, because these resources will be saved through the copper browser. I'll explain this in a minute. So the copper browser has direct access to the sites, but any other browser does not have access to those sites. And basically, that's what copper is there for. It facilitates that communication as well as access control. So this is a bit vague and a bit complex, depending on the amount of information that you have. It may be a bit complex, or yeah, but just give it time, it will sink in, and the more you get to interact with the system, the easier it will be to understand how it works. So on the server, we have two main programs running. We have we have Apache. Let me just correct that spelling. So we have Apache HTTP server, which is a program which will receive packets on port 80, process those packets based on a PHP script or any server program. Then it's going to send back the response, or the food as it were, to the specific machine which requested for that information. And so if you notice, each PC has got an IP address. That's what indicates that this PC is on the same network as where the server is. If the IP address range is outside the access points range, that is the network range, it means that you will not be able to access the server resources, because there's no direct connection between your PC and the server. So away from the network infrastructure, away from what copper would do, let's now get to a more, let's now abstract that out so that we understand what copper is mainly about. So to provide a platform where students can practice and experiment. Now, what does this mean? If you notice in this arrangement, it's localized. So people can practice, they can do penetration tests, they can write code, they can put it there. Other people can review that code, and it becomes a learning experience, because you're not waiting to get out into industry for you to be able to try these things out, but you're trying them in this local setup. And the setup has been made in such a way that it is so close to the industry, so that it becomes easier to work with, because when it's so close to the industry, when it's easier to work with, when you get into the industry, it's going to be way easier for you to work things out, and the costs of your mistakes will be minimal, since you have worked with these technologies in a local environment. So that's what Copper aims to achieve. It aims to provide this environment, okay, on top of the hardware, of course. So then next is so this suite which we're talking about is I think the best way to explain it is, let me just have a blank page here. So you can have this there, okay? So think of this as the network, okay? So this is the network, okay? So this is the network, and then on top of this network, okay, on top of the network, this is where copper is found, okay? So copper. So we have the network, physical connection of devices. Then once these devices are physically connected, whatever physical connection it may be, as long as there's a physical connection between devices and there is a server, then copper can run on top of that infrastructure. It can be installed on the server and on all clients. Then because of that client server software installation, then the clients and the servers can communicate on top of this network. So essentially, that's what we're trying to say here. It's a suite of applications which turns an internet infrastructure into an internet. So whatever network, may either be a small network, LAN, or a huge network like the internet itself, provided copper is on top of this infrastructure, it can turn uh, uh, any network into this kind of internet infrastructure. Okay, then the next thing which can be talked about is why do we need it? So put that technical stuff away, and the point still stands is that we want to provide users of the intranet with a near actual developer experience so that they are close to the industry as possible, but in a local setup. Then it allows developers to experience the developer world in controlled conditions and provides a testing environment for web apps. And of course, one thing which has to be added here is it allows cybersecurity students to test networks, to test if they can get through to a system and see practical ways in which they can be able to secure systems. And then following this is now the specific products or the specific software packages which come with the suite. So the suite is made up of three main programs: Copper SE, which is the standard edition, the developer edition, and the administrators edition. So the standard edition is for regular users. Okay, so typical users who would want to access resources on the server, they would use the SE edition. Then we've got the developer edition for those who would want to have additional access, that is to test their sites on this infrastructure, to upload their sites and manage them. They would use the developer edition. Then we have the administrators edition for strictly administrators. This will allow administrators to add users, manage developers, and simply control what happens on the intranet from the comfort of one software program. So that's basically the gist of the matter. Then how does it work? You register your account with an administrator. You get a copy of Copper. It's a program which you install on your desktop or on your laptop. Then you log in and enjoy. Of course, for you to log in, you need to get your credentials from the administrator when the account is created. So basically, that's what the theoretical aspect of Copper is all about. Okay, so now at this point, I'm just going to show you a quick preview of what I was talking about. So provided you have installed Copper, if you haven't installed, you simply get the setup, double click, follow the instructions and simply install it. Now once installed, it's going to open up something like this. Okay, so this is Copper, and you basically have not so much from the login page. Simply have two fields where you can supply your credentials and a settings button where you can adjust the server address and the theme. So this server address must correspond to the server address which was shown in that network diagram. Remember, we had several computers: PC1, PC2, PC3, and PC4, and we had two phones. Each of them had an IP address. Then we had an access point having the default gateway. Then we had the server, which also had an address. So provided you're on the same network as the server is on, you simply need to specify the address of the server in this box. So once you specify the address of the server in that box, it will allow you to now send it. So Copper will identify where the server is. Okay, now once it identifies, okay, the server is on this address, then it's going to direct all the requests to that computer. And then that computer will process the results, process the data, send the results back to Copper on your machine. So that communication, that link between your computer and the server is placed in this box. If you put in an address on which the server does not reside, you're going to get an error. Let me show you the error. So the error, let's suppose you put 192.that. Okay, so save this. So when you try to, even if your credentials are wrong, but provided you haven't specified the correct server address, they won't be able to be processed. It's like you're sending incorrect or correct, either type of credential. It can either be correct or incorrect, but the fact that you're sending it to the wrong source, there's no one to validate if it's either correct or not. So when you try to log in there, you're going to get this error here. The connection to the server failed. Configure the server IP address. So this simply means that Copper cannot communicate correctly with the server because it doesn't know where the server is because of the wrong IP address. And this error, you get it in two conditions. You may be on the network, but you place the wrong address. You're going to get this error. Or you may not be on the network and you try to place in the correct address, you're still going to get that error. So under those two conditions, yeah, not on the network, you're going to get that error. Yeah, on the network, but you supplied the wrong address, you're also going to get that error. But when you supply the correct address, so currently in the local environment, this is the default address. And then when I try to log in, notice what happens. It tells me the email or password entered is incorrect. What does this mean? It means we have now correctly established where the server is. And when we send this data, it's able to check if the information is correct or not. So the fact that it's given us a response of this sort, we now know that we're on the right track. Okay, now we simply need to provide the details which you were given upon registering your account with the administrator. Okay, so I'm just going to key in the credentials and log in. So once you log in, you're going to have this setup. Let me just change the theme so that it's more visible. Okay, so you're going to have the browser at your disposal, a help section which hasn't yet been finished because of some constraints. You're going to have a section where you can manage your account. You're going to get your credentials there, a summary of your credentials. You can change your password and you can update your details in the event that they have changed. And you can request to become a developer from this very section of the application. And you get to have your settings there and your mail. So mail is one way in which you can communicate with the administrators and other users on Copper. It's a basic communication provided by Copper on default. So this basic communication allows you to transfer messages to and fro users. So there's an inbox there. You can view your sent. So this is sent, and then you can compose a mail. You can enter the title and the message itself, and you can send. Provided the user is on Copper, it will be delivered. But keep in mind that even though we're using emails here, it doesn't mean to imply that it will send to an actual Gmail. No, it will send to your local message bank on Copper. So the email is just a way to identify you. It won't send to your email, but it will send to your local message bank on Copper. So that way it is strictly local and in an intranet setup. You can delete messages, you can read messages by clicking on the read button. It's going to show you the items there. Okay. Then moving forward from there, when you click on browser, it's going to tell you please wait while we launch the browser, and then the browser will open up in a separate window. So this is the browser. So currently there is nothing which is being showed. I have to work on this section, but you typically expect to be welcomed by a page telling you what you're currently viewing. Welcome to Copper. This is a repository where you're going to find applications developed locally. Then you're going to scroll down and see the various applications which are currently available. Click on the one that you want. It opens up within the browser. But you can also, so in the address bar here, you can enter an address like the same way of www.facebook.com. We also have local domain resolution on Copper. Okay, so when you try to enter something like www.facebook.com and you try to press on enter, it's going to tell you not found, because whatever address is entered, Copper expects to find the files on the local network. Okay, it won't go outside the network. It doesn't do that. It strictly sticks to the intranet. So you can enter any valid domain name here. It won't work. So you have to enter the valid domain names according to Copper. So one of the sites, I believe, is testup.intra. I think something like this. Okay, that's also not correct. Okay, what app was that? Let me just check what app it was quickly. WebOps and what was it? Oh, we deleted some of them. This is assignment. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, so let me just copy that. So this is zict.assignment.intra. Okay, there we go. So hello. So hello, this is a basic HTML page, but you of course expect to have images, slideshows, and the like going on. But this is basically how you would route to certain applications. So you can have thousands of applications on Copper, and each application will have a unique address. So you place the address in the address bar there, and Copper will route to that specific address. If you enter an address which is not recognized by Copper, it won't route to that specific address. So you're going to get an error saying the address you've entered is incorrect. So this is how you would enter in a domain name, Copper domain name, and it would route to that specific website locally. And then yeah, you can print to PDF, short downloads, and the like. So most of the features which are found in regular browsers have been disabled in Copper. For example, you can't view the source for the page. So by reducing on availability of certain features, we increase on confidentiality and integrity of the infrastructure, so that we ensure that we really live to the principle of an intranet, that is restricting access to outsiders, restricting access to certain information, and making sure that intellectual property is protected. So at no point do we expect someone to view the code for any HTML website. It's totally masked out, it's abstracted. So that's what we expect. When you click on home, you go back to the main page, but this one will be refreshed, so it's still there's still some cache coherence there, but it will be sorted out later on. So basically that's the browser. So when you close the browser, and you can get back to your Copper panel, the dashboard rather, and you can continue doing what you want to do with it. So basically that's the standard edition. Then for the developer edition, so the developer edition is similar to the standard edition. The UI is not so different. So you enter your email or your username. So it's supposed to change to username. So the username will be assigned to you when you request to become a developer, because when you go to the administrator, okay, so just at this point just pause, then forget about what I said earlier on. Then this is like a new chapter. Okay, moving on to the developer section. So when you are now a regular user, you would want to become a developer so that you can publish your websites, they can get reviews, can update them, generally the stuff which you would want to do with the website. So in that instance, you would make an explicit request to the administrator to become a developer. Then the administrator will review a request and approve. So once you are approved, then you're going to be given a new username for your developer account and password. With those two pieces of information, you can then log into the developer edition. Using your regular standard edition credentials will not work in this instance because it does not accept regular user credentials, but developer user credentials. So I'm going to just pick up one user. So, and there's a convention which has been set. All usernames for developers ends with this at copper.dev. That's how you know that this particular username is for a developer. Then when you try to use the developer username to send mail, it won't work because it's strictly for developer access, not for mail. No. So if you want to send mail, you go back to the standard edition. That's where you send mail from. But you can also read mail from here. Okay. Then the password is so is the password. The password is there. Then log in. When you log in, you're going to get a setup like this. So this is where you get to have all those resources which you need as a developer to successfully build and deploy a web app. So you simply need the main features which are of importance are the three, which is web apps, file manager, and PHP So I'm going to start with the web app section. So when you have a website which you want to deploy to Copper, okay, you have your website, you finished writing the website on your local environment, you want to deploy it to Copper, and keep in mind that Copper is running on this LAN. So in that instance, you would click on Web Apps. Once you click on Web Apps, you're going to have this interface, and then you say Create App. Okay, so when you create app, you supply the app name. So let's just say test app, then the document root. So the document root should correspond to the directory where your app resides on your file manager account. So I know this is a bit complicated. So just keep document root in mind, and let me show you what I mean. Excuse me. So what document root means is you see this file manager here. Think of this file manager just like your Explorer here, but it's on the intranet. It's on Copper. So it will give you access to a file manager which is on Copper and not on your machine. So the file manager is based on FileGetter. It's an open source file manager application, which is a web app website. So I'm going to enter the same credentials of your developer account. If you enter any other credentials here, you won't have access. So you enter the very credentials which you are given, then you log in. So once you log in, you get something like this. Okay, so it's going to show you Charles Mikete, log out, and this is your what? This indicates the files which you have. Okay, so when I say document root here, when I say create app, then I said document root. It should correspond to the root in your file manager here. So when you say new, so you can create a folder. Let's just say test app. Okay, then inside test app, you create let's say a file, and this file is index.html. Okay, something like this. Okay, and then you can edit this, and let's just add some basic HTML here. Okay, just basic HTML, not so much. Use that. Okay, I'm going to have a body. I'm going to have an H1 and say this is my test app. Okay, H1. Okay, something like that. Close up the body. Okay, then you can save. Save button is there. Okay, so it's updated. Okay, so I want you to notice something here. I'm going to bring this close up. So in the app name, I'm going to put test app. In the document root, must link this specific application to where your application is here in your file manager. So home is your root, okay? Then desktop, that's where you start from. So I'm going to put test app and forward slash, and then I'm going to put in index.html. I'm going to say index.html. So what this allows Copper to do is when you give it this document root or path, it's going to know exactly where your web app is. If you don't give it this document root, it won't know where to locate your website. And that's why it's so important that you correctly place in the document root so that it will be able to detect exactly where the application is. Then there's logo root in the event that you have a logo which will be displayed in the Copper Store. So the Copper Store is similar to the Google Play Store where you get your apps. Something similar will be present. When your browser opens, it shows you the Copper Store where you can find many websites. So for each website, it's supposed to have an icon. So this is where you specify where the icon can be found. Okay, you can leave it blank for now. Then there are many categories into which your application may fall. This is just a Copper 2 because we're just testing. You can specify the languages that you used, any special keywords which can be used when someone is searching for your site. A brief description. Let's just say this is a test app. Okay, you can put in a detailed description there. Then you can say create app. So this is going to create an app, and it's going to show you an entry here. Then as soon as your app is created, it's also going to show you the unique ID or the unique domain name for the app. So here it's saying zit.test-app.intranet. So let me just close this file manager. So when I go back to the browser, so when I open the browser, and this is what we're to open. So when I open the browser, let me also open this page so that I can get the address. So I'm going to say it's zipc. Okay, so it's zipc.intra dot, no, not dot intra, it's dot test app dot intra. Okay, dot intra meaning it's internal, zipc meaning where the network is at. It's at the Zambia City College. Now click on go, and you notice this is my test web app. So imagine this browser being opened on a different PC. So they're going to have access to your website and they can view your website. And if you decide to make any change, let me just try to make a change so that we see if, so assuming that this is on your local machine, okay, let me just make it more clearer. Okay, let us suppose that another PC is running on desktop 3, let's say PC 3. I said I'm going to put my browser there, and then this is you here on your machine. Okay, then you supply in your username for your developer account. Okay, and you also supply in your passwords. Okay, then you log in. Then you navigate to your application, navigate to your actual site. Then we can say something like, let's just add color to this site. So we're going to say, let's just say style equals, going to say background is background color. Let's say pink. Is this how you write pink? Pink. Yeah, so pink, save. Okay, then that person on the other side there who has your application, they can reload and pink. So whatever changes that you make on your application will be shown in the browser on any other machine. So you can create your full website and all that stuff and publish it. As long as the person knows the address, then they're going to be able to access your resources there. Okay, and so basically that's what it is for the developer edition. But we understand that there are two types of applications. Okay, you've got what you call static websites and dynamic websites. So what I'm just showing you is a static website. It has no processing. But you may also have a dynamic website. So let us suppose that we want to convert. Let's suppose that we have another application in mind. Okay, so let's create another application here. So create app. And this one is going to be called test app 2. So document root is test app 2, and I'm going to create an index.php file. So PHP, which is also going to be a copper. Okay, let's say it's for a company, just for argument's sake. And I'm going to skip this, and this is going to say this is test app 2. Okay, create app. So it's going to create an app, and if you notice, the extension has changed to com. So depending on the category of your application, that's what is going to denote the domain extension. So in this case, it's com. In this case, it's a company. So you can even test your company website on a local environment like this. Okay, now to get the actual site, to get the actual sites files on the copper servers. This is a password, so put it there. Okay, so now let's get that site up and running. Okay, so Charlie, then login. Okay, so we said test app 2. There's a folder, test app 2. And we're going to say create. Okay, we're going to open that, and here we're going to say, wow, this is going to be index.php, and create. We're going to edit it, and simply going to write the basic PHP script. So it's going to print out I equals 0, while I is less than 10, increment I by 1. Okay, and then here I'm going to say echo, just echo I, and put a break. Okay, something like that. And I'm going to click on save. Okay, so let's try to run this application on the, I want to say web apps. This is let me just get the name. .com. Okay, so when I click on go, there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 9. So this is how you would write your application, your website, which is dynamic. So like this, it can be able to take input and can be process the input, feedback the output, and let's try to make this interactive. Okay, I know you don't understand the PHP code. Don't worry about it. Let's just try to make it interactive. Okay, so I'm going to hop back to the file manager, and I'm going to modify this code. Okay, so here I'm going to put an HTML. I'm going to put an HTML something head, and that's going to be closing the head. And I'm going to put the body there. I'm going to open a form, and this form goes to action equals the action is index.php. That's where the item is going to go, the input. The method is post. Okay, so post is a secure method of transmitting data on the internet. And I'm going to create an input field. The type is text. Okay, so type is text, and the name is SSL limit. Okay, and let's say placeholder, and placeholder will be enter a limit. Okay, something like that. And we're going to have a break, and we're going to have input type is submit. Let me put the space there. So yeah, submit, and yeah, value is submit. Okay, so this is a basic. Let's just put something. Sorry, I know you don't understand this, but don't have to. It's just basic. Just basic HTML. And I know I've gone a bit off course, but I really want you to appreciate that what Copper is able to do, and the goal, how it has been realized. So we can say enter a limit. Okay, so something like that. And yeah, so what this means, this is going to provide an input field where the user can enter some value. Then I want to capture that value here. So I'm going to say if is set, what is set, $sign underscore post. This is what this is. So the limit. So if limit is set, what should happen? So if limit is set, then I want this code to execute. I want it to execute up until limit. Execute up until. Hopefully there are no errors. Hop over to that browser, which is on that person's site, or rather on that other device. Reload. So there's an error on line number 3. Okay, so I'm going to jump back here and we go to 3, which is that one there. Okay, so there's that. So where's the error? Is it double quotes? Should be double quotes, if I'm not mistaken. So is set that, then that. Okay, I'm going to save this. Hopefully it works now. Reload. Still syntax error, expected that. Line number 3. Debugging. Let me just indent this so that it's a bit better. Okay, so then if okay, let me just pause the video and try to sort out the error. Yeah, pause. Okay, so found the error. So I forgot to put another bracket there. So that's where the error was. But now it actually works. So when I reload, enter a limit. So I'm just enter a limit, let's say 20. When I submit, it's going to print from 0 to, it's going to print 20 items on the screen from 0 to 19. So that's how you would implement a basic dynamic application. Okay, so it may have, now instead of having limit, it can be login system to a social media platform, or it can be a coding platform where people write code online. And what you can do with Copper is just limitless. So the idea is that instead of having this editor here, which is not so, it's good, you can write your code, you can paste it there to work, but I was thinking of having something similar to Visual Studio Code, so that you get to have your nice editor there. Completions are good and the like. So that's for later. But for now, that is sufficient. So that's basically how you would link your application to your code, and it would be indexed in the browser. Okay, so what else? So PHP is a bit advanced for applications which rely on a database to continue with its processing. That's where you would need to have PHP So PHP allows you to manage your database, creating tables in the database, viewing the data which is in the database, and the like. So each developer will have a database account with a single database to which their application can connect. So I'm not going to go into it because I did not set up this user with a database account. But basically, PHP would load something like this. Then you enter your username and password and you go. Then that's going to log you in and you're going to have access to your databases and you can then continue with your development from there on. So this is basically what Copper is. Okay. I'm not going to talk about the administrator's edition because the process of setting it up is a bit hectic. Remember what I said, when you reduce on availability, you increase on security. So I will not talk about the administrator's edition for security reasons, but yeah, basically it's there and it also works in a similar way. So basically that's what Copper is all about. I think that's it. Yeah.